Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the exact blueprint of how the Adani Group evolved from a tiny trading firm into an absolute infrastructure behemoth. It's a story of immense risk, rapid expansion, and honestly, intense scrutiny. We're looking purely at the facts here, drawing directly from the sources to figure out the mechanics behind one of the most talked about corporate ascents in modern history. Now, to really understand the Adani Empire today, we've got to look at exactly how it was built. And right away, that brings up a massive central debate. Did Gautam Adani become this powerful because of extraordinary business execution? Was it political connections? Or maybe a mix of the two? It's literally the elephant in the room whenever this conglomerate is brought up. See, there are two dominant, totally opposite narratives here. On one hand, supporters call his journey visionary entrepreneurship, like a masterclass in risk-taking and strategic positioning. On the other hand, critics label it crony capitalism, arguing that close alignment with governments is what really fueled this massive growth. Our goal in this explainer isn't to pick a side. Instead, we want to look factually at how the empire was actually constructed so you can really understand the reality behind both of these perspectives.
Okay, part one, before the empire, risk and trading.
Long before the massive ports, the power plants, and the mountains of debt, there was just a young man trying to figure out the business world. And Gautam Adani, he had a genuinely unconventional path. He didn't inherit some massive corporate empire, and he didn't have a fancy elite foreign education. Actually, in the late 1970s, he dropped out of college and worked as a diamond sorter in Mumbai. Now, that specific job is absolutely crucial. It taught him international commerce, arbitrage, and high-speed deal-making. By the early 1980s, he shifted back to his home state of Gujarat to handle PVC imports for his brother's plastics business. You have to remember, this was a pre-liberalization India bogged down by heavy regulations. But Adani learned to navigate that maze of import licensing and complex government rules much better than his competitors. So finally, in 1988, he founded Adani Exports, which was just a standard trading firm handling agricultural and power commodities. Honestly, at this point, he looked just like hundreds of other traders. But then, the whole game changed. In 1991, India liberalized its economy. Suddenly, the government reduced import restrictions, threw open the doors to international trade, and welcomed private sector participation. Now sure, a lot of industrialists benefited from this shift, but very few exploited the opportunity as aggressively as Adani. He basically took his trading firm and put it into overdrive, rapidly expanding from agriculture into metals, commodities, and logistics. And that brings us to a crucial turning point, captured perfectly in a realization that became the ultimate catalyst for his shift in strategy. Adani realized, way earlier than almost all of his competitors, that while trading generates profits, infrastructure generates control. Think about it. You can make good money moving goods around, sure, but if you own the actual port those goods move through, you hold permanent power. Which leads us to part two, the Mundra port gamble. So in the mid-1990s, the state of Gujarat started opening up opportunities for private companies to get involved in port development. When Adani looked at a place called Mundra, which was this undeveloped, completely remote area, most investors just balked. The risk was seen as astronomically high. I mean, almost nobody believed a project there would actually succeed. But where everyone else saw a wasteland, Adani saw a massive logistics gateway. He managed to secure the rights and, against the odds, began construction. And guys, this is why Mundra matters so much. See, there's this common myth floating around that Adani got rich purely playing the stock market, or just by building a few power plants. That is fundamentally incorrect. By owning Mundra Port, Adani gained total physical control over the whole shebang. Imports, exports, warehousing, logistics, industrial zones, and transportation links. Mundra wasn't just a port. It was the actual physical economic engine that would power literally everything his company would do next. That engine brings us to part three, the infrastructure flywheel. Let's walk through this exact 5-step model because it is fascinating. Step 1, acquire infrastructure, like a port. Step 2, use that infrastructure to generate steady, reliable cash flow. Step 3, and this is where it gets super aggressive, borrow heavily against those existing assets. Step 4, use all that borrowed money to acquire even more infrastructure. And step 5, repeat the cycle. Now, depending on who you ask, you'll get a very different take on this. Supporters argue this exact flywheel enabled incredibly rapid nation building, basically allowing India to get vital infrastructure built fast. But critics, they heavily point out that this relentless cycle of borrowing against assets created massive debt exposure, making the whole group potentially very vulnerable. So what does this flywheel actually look like in reality? Well, in the mid-2000s, Adani entered power generation. So suddenly, imported coal could arrive seamlessly through Adani-owned ports, move along Adani-managed logistics lines, and go directly to fuel Adani's newly built thermal power plants. The flywheel wasn't just making the company bigger, it was making it totally interconnected and self-reliant. It's like a giant puzzle where they own all the pieces.
Moving on to part 4, politics, Gujarat, and power.
Unlike tech startups or consumer goods companies, Adani focuses almost exclusively on critical sectors. We're talking airports, energy, mining, and transmission. And these sectors share 3 defining traits. First, high capital requirements, meaning very few competitors can even afford to play the game. Second, long asset life, meaning these projects generate revenue for decades. And third, and this is the big one, regulatory dependence. You simply cannot build a port or an airport without massive government permission and land acquisition. Because these businesses fundamentally require a government green light, operating in these sectors naturally creates a profound political dimension. And this brings us right into the fierce debate over Adani's foundational rise in his home state of Gujarat. On one side, critics argue that the government deliberately helped create favorable conditions, providing opportunities to Adani that were simply unavailable to competitors. But supporters, they completely counter this. They state that Gujarat generally welcomed investment from a lot of different companies, and Adani just executed his projects better and faster than rival firms. Now, the available evidence clearly shows Adani did benefit significantly from Gujarat's pro-business environment. However, it's really important to note that whether this constitutes favoritism remains politically contested. To date, no court has ever established illegal favoritism. Naturally, this inevitably leads to discussions about Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Because, both Gautam Adani and Narendra Modi rose to tremendous prominence simultaneously in Gujarat. Adani expanded rapidly during Modi's tenure in the state, and critics frequently point to this overlap. However, we have to remember, correlation is not proof. While there is a widely acknowledged proximity and association between the two, there is absolutely no judicial proof that Adani's success was the result of illegal government assistance. In political debates, that line gets blurred all the time, but for a strictly factual understanding, maintaining this distinction is absolutely vital. All right, let's wrap this up with part 5, What the Facts Show. So here is what is definitively proven about the Adani ascent. He started as a small commodity trader. The Mundraport gamble, that was the ultimate turning point. It was physical infrastructure, not just trading, that created the empire. He strategically pursued highly capital-intensive sectors that basically locked out smaller competitors. The state of Gujarat played a crucial role in the group's foundational rise, and without a doubt, the group benefited from broader policy changes and a pro-business environment. Conversely, here is what is legally and factually not proven. It is not proven that Adani's rise was solely due to political connections. It is not proven that Gujarat, or later national governments, engaged in illegal favoritism toward his companies. And finally, it is not proven that his immense business success can be explained entirely by government support, completely ignoring his aggressive risk-taking and execution. And that leaves us with this final, provocative thought to conclude our explainer. When you look at an empire built on diamond sorting routes, the absolutely massive risk of Mundra port, an aggressive debt-fueled flywheel, and an undeniable proximity to political power, what is the true weight of strategic execution versus the political environment? Can massive nation-building infrastructure ever truly be separated from the state? Or is mastering both the boardroom and the political landscape simply what it takes to build an empire of this scale? It's a complex reality, and it definitely challenges how we view corporate growth. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this helps structure the facts for you, and definitely keep questioning how the massive systems around us are built.